Well, greetings to you. I want to talk to you a little bit about global governance, which is the project of the World Economic Forum and has been for some decades. And its supporters are a broad range of people who believe in this concept, who believe in global governance, Malthusian principles, i.e. overpopulation, so on and so forth. And it's fundamentally hostile to the concept of democracy, but particularly it's hostile to the concept of the nation state. Now, in order to bring that about, you have to go through a few steps, because most ordinary folk, chaps like me, probably chaps like you reading this, generally speaking, rather like the concept of the nation state. We like to do things our way, with our own legal system, with our own way of life, so on and so forth. And that's what we really like. And as an Englishman, or a Brit, if you will, I like the way we do things, broadly speaking, and there's certain tweaks, for example, in Scotland, in Scottish law, so on and so forth. But broadly speaking, we rather like what we've got. And we want friendly neighbours, and we want to trade with our neighbours, so on and so forth. But now these people who are after this do not want this. They don't want this. They must have a total form of state control globally, for reasons best known to themselves. That's something that WF people can explain, should they so wish. But of course the problem is they don't so wish. They know that we don't want it, we don't like it, so consequently it has to be done secretly. And so it's being done secretly to Germans, Frenchmen, Italians, Spaniards in particular, so they can do it in a surreptitious manner. Now, in order to degrade the nation state, you can't replace it with world governance, you can't replace it with a WEF system until you have degraded the existing system, which is a well-known phenomenon, of course, when it comes to communist states. Communists and fascists, if you like, they need to degrade the state as it stands so they can rebuild it in the system that they want. None of this is rocket science, none of this is difficult, and I've been banging at this particular drum for some time, and there's certain a few others like me who've been told, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, this, that and the other. Well, now it's just been blown really wide open for those who want to see, but of course you could have quite easily seen it a decade ago. Let's look at the situation we have in Great Britain. Well, in Great Britain, the way to degrade, if you will, the nation state is you attack its institutions. And just let's have a look at the institutions which have been degraded, not in any great order of priority. We know the Church of England has been degraded by actually breaking through its own doctrine and deceiving its own doctrine, with all sorts of weird priests who don't really believe in God, they're agnostic, so on and so forth. And one glance at not just this Archbishop of Canterbury, who of course is a fake doctrinally, but the previous ones, oil executives and so on and so on. Not very nice people. So the Church of England has been degraded, and the churches are empty, and it's left a huge vacuum from a religious point of view. Look at the British BBC, the public broadcasting system, which was exemplary if you go back to the 1950s and early 60s, and of course before the war, was generally regarded internationally as being so. It is now simply a propaganda machine for the government of the day, especially if it's a Labour government. So the BBC has been degraded. You also, and politicised, and we also know that the civil service has been deeply politicised, with no protection against that politicisation, because of the reforms or changes, if you will, that Tony Blair made. So the civil servants don't report to a politically elected minister. He cannot sack anybody. He's not in charge. He's a figurehead, and of course we know that. It used to be done surreptitiously, and for those of you who used to watch the old programme, that brilliant programme that was starred Humphrey Appleby and people like that as a civil service. We saw that. That was wonderful. But now, of course, it's up front, and the civil service simply don't care. They are unsackable. They're led by Fabians or neo-Fabians, and you've only got to see the committees, the parliamentary committees led by people like Rupert Lowe, cross-examining these people to see they don't care. They squirm a bit, and they can be made to squirm, but they don't care. They're only in office, or the particular appointment rather, for maybe 12 months or 14 or 15 months, which is policy. So as soon as they even begin to get a grip on anything, they're moved on. And of course they can't tell you where the money goes. They don't know why the salary of civil servants is shooting up. They're all indexing pensions, and nobody ever gets sacked. So the civil service has gone. And let's just give you a little tip on that. The Indian subcontinent, with sort of nearly 1 billion people in the old days of the Raj, the Indian civil service consisted of 1,000 people. To manage all those people and the administration of all those people, with all the things that went about the railways and so on and so forth. That's fascinating that you don't need all these civil servants. It's ridiculous. There's hundreds and hundreds, and I think the last time I counted, there was some in the region of 5 million civil servants, or quangos, or neo-quangos, or whatever you want to call them, but basically they're all civil servants. So you've got that problem. Then you've got the absolutely appalling politicisation of the police, and I've banged on about that before. The police have been politicised. And I'm going to do another separate video on that in the next couple of weeks yet again, because I've got some ideas on how they can be possibly retrained or got rid of, and a training program should come in, but I won't go down that rabbit hole just yet. We have a party political system which has failed, and has been failing for some time, let's be frank. We have a very low grade of politician. The politicians are very, very low grade, and some of you might argue, well, they've always been a bit low grade. I don't know that I'd take issue with that, to be really, but they have never been quite as bad and as intellectually and financially dishonest as they are now. So this degradation has to take place. Now, the easiest way you can cut across the board, it's already degraded our institutions, but how do you degrade completely society? Well, the one thing you can do on that, of course, and history shows us, is mass immigration. Mass immigration. And we've had to put up for some time this huge lie, the great lie, that somehow there are immigration gangs and crooks and people traffickers and all this kind of thing, and there's nothing you can do, and you just wring your hands and go, my goodness me, what you can do, and we're bound by the European Court of Human Rights and international law and UN and so on and so forth, and blah, blah. Which, of course, is completely and totally untrue. So we have that sort of problem, and now it's been blown wide open, and I attach a clip here from Rupert Lowe's exposed it, but I mean, it's now in the newspapers for everybody to see, that it is a quite deliberate plan to degrade our society and spread hundreds of thousands, millions of immigrants who have no sympathy towards this country, its institutions, or its legal systems, or indeed the concept of the relationship legally between men and women and the state. Okay, I've gone on about that before. So parking all that aside, but it has been told that there's a whole system of bringing them in, bringing thousands and thousands of people who are landing every day, some legitimately in some parts and some not legitimately in others. So you have these massive influxes, and then they're going to spread around the country. And of course, I know I was in office for 10 years and I was brought in occasionally by people to look at things. You only need one or two rogue families on a council estate to actually disrupt everybody and make everybody's lives a minute for miles around. You bring in hundreds and hundreds of people who have no concept of the principles of English law or their treatment of females and so on and so on. You bring those on, you will destroy whole swathes of areas. And the Prime Minister now has made it very clear that at the moment they've been punishing the working classes with those in certain parts because accommodation is cheap and you can put people in cheap. And one, I think the best recent example of that is Morecambe, which is very run down. And it was social housing and in druggies and people coming out of prison. And now massive influxes of immigrants, mostly illegal, and most of whom young men of whom we know nothing. We know that's happening, but that's not enough now. We've got to start degrading the middle class areas. So we've got to put these people in middle class areas so we can degrade the whole system, because there's no point in just degrading part of society. You've got to do the whole thing if you bring this World Economic Forum plan. And this is what is going on, and I suggest you have a look at this clip, which is now generally known, and I've been saying for years. And we have some problems. Now, we have some problems as far as resistance is concerned. The King is a World Economic Forum stooge. His son, the Prince of Wales, is a stooge. And there's money flowing from all sorts of places, the World Economic Forum, there's George Soros degrading elections, so on and so forth. You have all these problems. You're seeing a collapse, of course, in Germany. You're seeing a collapse in France. And we're seeing a more recent collapse with the new socialist government in Spain. And what is interesting is that these people who are landing from Morocco have their eyes set on our little island, because they call it Treasure Island. That's the word that's going around, Treasure Island, because they get absolutely monster benefits when they get here, more than they can ever get in Spain. And they've got an eye on Marine Le Pen in France, knowing that their numbers might be up. And maybe that it's a good spot to come to is our island here, which is almost overwhelmingly, unbelievably generous when it comes to handing out working people's tax, in huge gobbets. So that's going to come. So you have no real political parties who are actually talking about the problem. We have the Conservative Party who brought all these people in because I think they were looking for something like cheap labour. You might argue cheap labour. And certainly that was actually said by various prime ministers, a good idea to bring people in because labour would be cheap and so on and so forth. And we know that to be the case. But we also know, do we not, that nothing can be done with these people because they don't speak English or they don't speak very good English and they come from a background where they bring nothing to add. And we've all now seen the exposure of who is actually bringing in wealth to the country, who is in the wealth creating sector and who is in the wealth consuming sector by way of welfare. And you don't need to be brilliant to understand exactly who they are. And the government has tried to hide the report, but it's in public domain if you want to look at it now. So generally speaking, immigrants in the main are consumers of welfare benefits where they're paid for in the main by the indigenous population. And that's not a surmise. That is what the government statistics are already showing us. So it's going to be very, very difficult for us in the future and our children and our grandchildren. And I think we're going to have to go the route, and I've said this before, of gated communities. I think it's gone too far now to actually reverse. And I know Restore is claiming that they can reverse it. Maybe they can, and they've got a battle plan, as it were, and good luck to them, and I hope they can. Reform have always been wishy-washy. They've always wrung their hands and say, what can you do? And generally speaking, if you see what the leaders of Reform were actually saying a few years ago, they were saying, well, there's nothing we can do, it's too late. And now they're being pushed by Restore to actually starting to man up and grow a backbone and start saying, no, we're going to do something about this. But it's still not really recognising that this is a deliberate plan of action. And the only way that we can stop it is militarily. It's the only way we can do anything about it. We have to actually stop the boats coming in, not by cancelling their welfare benefits or leaving the ECHR and all this kind of thing. You have to actually mobilise the Royal Marines, the Royal Navy, and you tow them back to France. And of course, somebody goes, oh, what if France won't take them? And what if France don't do this? And so on. And let's do some more hand-wringing. No good. It's no good. They have to be towed back. And if the French don't like it, they'll have to bloody lump it. And if the French want to go to war over it, so be it, because we're at war already. We're under threat, as we were indeed from the Armada. We were from Napoleon, the Kaiser, and Hitler. And all these people who tried to invade our island but were pushed back, they weren't pushed back by stopping benefits, they were pushed back at the barrel of a gun. And it's the only way we can deal with it. They have to know that they can't come here, they're risking. And we've seen the Greek Navy push these people back. They were coming from Turkey and they've stopped coming. And we saw Australia do it some years ago by actually going out into the ocean and picking them up and towing them back. As Churchill would have said, action this day, action this day. But there's no point in hand-wringing. There's no point in trying to pretend that we can stop this huge invasion, this existential threat to our nation, by stopping their benefits or making them have 2 meals a day instead of 3 or whatever it happens to be, or live in a 2-star hotel or be given a house in a nice neighbourhood, which they will soon drag down. It won't be a nice neighbourhood anymore, these people, because they have no concept of living cheek by jowl with people who are a different faith or a different view and a different everything. So this is going to happen. This has got nothing to do with the colour of skin, by the way. It has not a great deal to do with, funnily enough, would you believe, with actual religion. For example, you have a look and see how Pakistan treats rapists. They hang them. In Pakistan, you could pick up your newspaper and you can look it up. It's easy. It's in the public domain. In Pakistan, if you rape a woman and they find you, they will hang you. So the judges in this country, the Fabians and all the rest of it, normally the white middle class, say, oh, well, he didn't know he was doing wrong. He thought he could rape that 14-year-old white girl because he didn't know anything about it. So I'm going to give him a very light prison sentence. Poor chap, he didn't know. Oh, yes, they do. Oh, yes, they do know. They know very well. And they don't try it on themselves. And I can assure you, I've been to all these places. I've been to all these places over the years. And I can tell you, they don't tolerate it. You try that kind of behaviour in Pakistan or Morocco, where they're pouring in from, incidentally. or Morocco, you won't get any of that. You might get harassed a little bit by somebody sort of trying to sell you something or the rest of it. But if you're walking through there, you'll be, generally speaking, you'll be left alone, or they'll be swept up by the police. Same in places like Cairo. They don't try it on at home, they try it here, and they try it here because they know they won't be punished. They won't even necessarily get a custodial sentence for crimes which I regard as disgusting against children. Yes, I know that some of the indigenous population need it too, and I'd bang them all up, and I'd hang a few. And I've said that before. I've said before. We need a referendum on capital punishment for the people who murder and torture children. Absolutely no question about it. Hang them up. So this is the problem that we have. But I want to see the bigger parties, and when I say the bigger parties, I mean the Conservative Party, who are notionally against this, who actually started it, so their arguments don't carry very much weight with me. I want reform leadership to acknowledge that we have an existential crisis by design, and start planning accordingly. And at the moment, frankly, we're not really getting it. We're getting a very reluctant leadership of all these parties saying, oh yes, gosh, what can you do? And we're going to do something about it, and we're going to cut off their benefits or reduce their benefits or leave the ECHR. It's all bullshit. I want to hear political party leaders say, we're towing the buggers back, and there's an end of that. And if the French don't like it, they can bloody well lump it. As most of you know, my work is very heavily independently research based. And I get my information from all over the world. It would help if you press the subscribe button and the little bell next to it, because the more subscribers I have, the more likely it is that international independent research institutes will share their material with me. It's most helpful, and then of course I automatically share it with you. So, surprise, won't cost you anything. Thank you very much.